30 seconds. 20 seconds. 10 seconds.
Hi,
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Good morning again. This is Jonathan Small, host and producer of Face to Face. And Face to Face is one of two different talk shows that I have the pleasure of hosting and producing every single week live at AccessTV.org studios in downtown Hartford. Face to Face is a show that's designed to ask the guests the hard questions and give you, the viewers, the answers and information that you deserve to know. This morning on Face to Face, I have a guest who has a tremendous background in the National Football League. He plays a critical role at a level that deals with players, and I have the pleasure of having him as the special guest on Face to Face. The guest is the co-founder, president, and CEO of Overtime Sports Management LLC, located in Houston, Texas. The guest actually is coming all the way from Sacramento, California. No other than Corey Williams. Good morning, Corey. How are you doing?
Good morning, Jonathan. Thanks so much for having me on. It's a pleasure.
Okay, likewise, Corey. Corey, could you kind of let people know a little bit about yourself and background briefly before we get into our main topics of discussion?
Yes, sir. So again, my name is Corey Williams, president, co-founder of Overtime Sports Management Group. My business partner, Will Felix III, and I actually founded Overtime Sports Management Group in 2010. So it's just two young men from Orange, Texas, who had a dream. We actually got hooked up because my business partner's uncle and my dad were really close friends, and I was just in town for a family reunion, and remember, my dad was saying, oh, he was talking to Will's uncle. He's like, yeah, my son is taking the NFLPA exam, and Will's uncle, may he rest in peace, he actually passed away of COVID in 2020. He said, yeah, my nephew Will, he's taking the exam. We should link them up. And yeah, 14 years later, here we are. So two young men from the fruit, as we call it, Orange, Texas, being able to represent and really help young men achieve their dream of going to the NFL.
Well, Corey, you mentioned something about to become a sports agent in the professional world of sports, whether it's the National Football League or other professional sports. You have to take an examination.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, for to be actually certified for the NFLPA, not only do you have to take an exam, you have to have at least, so it's two requirements. You can either have 700 hours of contract experience, or you have to have a master's or a Juris Doctorate. Now, I'm a very proud double HBCU grad. I went to Prairie View for undergrad and went to Texas Southern Thurgood Marshall School of Law for law school. My business partner, he actually graduated from University of Louisiana Lafayette, and also went to Southern University and got his MBA. So we're both proud HBCU grads. And, like I say, one of the mottos of Prairie View is Prairie View produces productive people. So we've been blessed. I've been blessed to be one of the productive people that Prairie View's produced. So that is the requirement. It's either 700 hours, a master's, or a Juris Doctorate level degree.
I don't mean to switch the subject, but How has Rich Paul, who's one of the biggest sports agents for the National Basketball Association, has he had to take the same examination to become a sports agent? If you have any awareness of this, I just wanted to ask that
Well,
real
that's
quick.
a no, that's a great question, Jonathan. So actually, the basketball requirements are a little bit different. Basketball, I believe it's only requirement for a bachelor's degree. I really do like the NFLPA rule. In fact, there was a Jay-Z rule. So, Jay-Z had applied to be an NFL agent, and the NFLPA actually told him that because he didn't have his master's at the time. And the question I still pose today is, he's a mogul of a multi-million dollar music label, and you're saying he doesn't have 700 hours of contract experience. So it really seems like the NFLPA kind of tried to exclude LeBron. But actually, with Rich Paul, with Clutch, and I'm always very proud of any black sports agency, but Rich Paul is actually not certified with the NFLPA. He has Clutch Sports Management. He has some very top level agents, such as Nicole Lynn, Demarius Bilbo, some of those other agents on the team. But that's kind of the workaround that some of these agents who don't have the actual master's or Juris Doctorate, that's their workaround of being able to get into the industry. They just hire agents under them. That's what happened with Jay-Z. He hired a young lady whenever he started Rock Nation, and she was the one that was on Saquon Barkley and some of the others that Jay-Z started. So that's kind of the workaround. You always say, as an attorney, it's always a gray area. So you got to figure out the way to get around it. And that's kind of how they did.
Okay, Corey, your role as a sports agent, you handle the contracts of college professional athletes, college professional football players towards negotiating their NFL contracts. Do you approach the college players? Do they approach you? Or is there some other way that you meet with certain players and then you work towards a business arrangements that you're going to represent this particular college athlete towards a professional contract?
Another great question, Jonathan. So it's a combination of both, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, for us, we're always trying to recruit some of the top level, what we call day one, first round, day two, second, third round guys. Most of our wheelhouse as a smaller agency, even though we're kind of transitioning to, I guess, what you would say a medium large, we usually get more of day three picks. But it's a kind of we get approached by a lot of guys who may be some unheralded guys,
Mm-hmm.
and they come to us, and then but still we're also trying to still recruit some of the top level guys as well. So it's a combination of both. We do a lot of social media with our guys, and I think that's the biggest thing that my business partner and I, when we started OSMG in 2010, we wanted to make sure, our motto is going the extra distance for our clients. So literally myself or my business partner, or our team now, because we have 10 agents on our team, including Will and myself, we're literally at a football game supporting our clients every week of the NFL season. So client engagement is extremely big for us. And, I think when prospective, this year, 2024 NFL draft guys see like how involved we are with our clients and how active we are. I think that's one of the things that does separate us in the recruiting process. So, we in the 2010 and 2011, 2012 years, I was having to go to these games and do all these different things, talk to parents and stuff. Now I really very rarely go to games. I mean, for the most part, our social media reach speaks for itself.
Mm-hmm. Well, Corey, when you sign a contract or you're representing a college athlete towards a professional contract, what is the percentage that you, as the sports agent, charges? Like if a college football player is being selected by an NFL team, and his contract is, let's say, $1 million a year. He has a 5-year contract for $1 million per year. How much money is guaranteed towards you as the sports agent if you represent that particular college player?
Great question again,
Mm.
Jonathan. So the minimum commission, I'm sorry, the maximum commission under the National Football League Players Association guidelines is actually 3% for contract and up to 20% for marketing. That is negotiable depending on the level of the clientele. And for this particular year, for any players that are coming into the 2024 year, the minimum salary this year is 795,000. So undrafted players are going to sign a 3-year contract, and drafted players sign a 4-year contract with, and the first rounders have a 5th-year option, but it's a 5th-year team option, not a player option. So that's very critical when you're thinking about it, because if a player is outperforming their contract in the first 3 years because they can renegotiate as a drafted player at the end of their 3rd year, then keep in mind that the 5th-year option is a team option. So if a player is not performing, then the team has the option to not exercise that particular option on the player. And there's a number of first rounders this year coming up for their 5th-year option that may not be exercised. So like I say, undrafted guys get that 3-year deal, and the salary goes up each year. So I think it's 795 for this first year coming up. I want to say it's like 890 or 900 for the second year, and then it's about 975 that 3rd year. And like I say, it's at 3%. And then the drafted players get that extra 4th year, which would be a minimum of the probably $1 million in that 4th year now.
Well, Corey, in the National Football League, if the contracts are not guaranteed, only the signing bonus money is guaranteed. How do you get a certain percentage of the signing bonus money? Because let's say if a college football player is drafted and an NFL team decides to cut the player after 1 year, are you guaranteed the percentage automatically because you negotiate the contract through the contract, or would your money now be eliminated, or do you get a percentage of the signing bonus money? Because the NFL is a little bit different than the National Basketball Association and the Major League Baseball Association, where those contracts are guaranteed.
That's correct. So we do get 3% of any monies earned outside of training camp per diems and off-season training activities. So the signing bonus is commissionable, as well as any salary that the player earns while the contract is going in. And you bring up a great point, Jonathan. So for a drafted player in this 2024 draft, let's just say we have a 3rd rounder. The average signing bonus is about $800,000. So we would, get, of course, commission on that 3%, 3% of that 800,000. But also, because of their high nature of being drafted so high, most likely that player is at least going to make it through that first year of the contract. So let's say we have a 3rd rounder making about 1.5 million. We're going to see 3% most likely of that 1.5 million. I think the highest drafted player that was released in the first year of their contract, and again, don't quote me, but I feel pretty confident about this, was about in the 4th round. That was the highest drafted player was cut in the first year of their contract. So very rare if you're like a day one, you definitely wouldn't get cut day one because your contract. So here's another thing too. As a day one draft pick, those contracts are pretty much fully guaranteed. So,
Mm-hmm.
like Caleb Williams this year, when he signs, he'll probably sign a 4-year contract with about probably, I would think, about 39 to 40 million. And that's going to be fully guaranteed. And then he'll have the 5th-year team option, not player option, but he will see every bit of that money. So first rounders get more guarantees. And then second, they get a few more guarantees. And then as you get to the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, the only guarantees is the signing bonus or what's called a paragraph 5 guarantee. So paragraph 5 guarantee is where, like, say, we have a $795,000 salary. Some teams, especially for undrafted free agents, they sign a paragraph 5. So where at least, let's say, just to use round numbers, let's say it was 800,000. So if someone had in their contract 160,000 P5 guarantee. That means that they will at minimum see 160,000 of that contract, whether that's through practice squad. And if they don't happen to make any kind of actual practice squad or anything throughout the course of the season, that team has to actually cut a check for 160,000 at the end of the season.
Hmm. Corey, there's so many aspects of professional sports towards when people hear contracts and they hear the certain amount of money that a professional athlete makes. But if you hear a report of a professional football player or basketball player or baseball player, they're earning $50 million a year. How much actual money are they actually earning when you deduct all of the taxes, the management fees, any other additional costs that people may not be aware of? So, a $50 million a year contract for a professional athlete equals how much take home money are they actually taking for that one particular year out of the so called $50 million?
Outstanding question on that one, Jonathan. So I almost kind of look at it like the Shohei Ohtani rule.
Mm-hmm.
So normally, players would be taxed right upwards of 40% of their money when it comes to those higher end players. So like, you're looking at a player, let's say in 50 million, you're looking at being Uncle Sam's best friend because he's going to be in those pockets for about 20 million of that money.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing, you have different ways that you can beat Uncle Sam, and this is the things that we advise our clients is deferred compensation. So Shohei Ohtani, he just signed a $700 million deal with the Dodgers. But if you notice how he structured it, he's only taking $2 million a year for the next 10 years. And then he's deferring the other 680 million. So when he goes now, so his plan is I'm going to retire and then I'm going to go back to, I think he's from Japan. And then he knows that his money is not going to be taxed the same way as it would in the United States. So even though he's going to see that $700 million, he structured it in such a way where he beat Uncle Sam. And another thing too, think about the Bobby Bonilla rule. A lot of people were like, Bobby was crazy to take the buyout or pretty much to defer his money for that $30 million that the Mets owed him. Like, oh, you need your money right now. But when you think about it, Bobby was one of the smartest men in the room. He's still getting paid. I think Bobby's like 55 years old, and still getting $1 million a year. And I think the Bobby Bonilla rule doesn't expire until like I think he's 62. So imagine getting 60, getting $1 million a year, and you quit playing baseball in 2005. I mean, that's just crazy but that's really how players can beat the actual tax, Uncle Sam, is by deferred compensation.
Now, as a sports agent, do you have to advise the professional players or the so-called professional players all of the benefits that they could receive towards their contracts, like what you just mentioned, towards certain setting up certain types of other different deals beyond the norm? Because they just may not be aware of a college athlete signing a professional deal towards the benefits of tax or breaks you can get and other breaks you can get, like you mentioned, professional athletes getting paid even when they're not playing.
A great point. And that's I think that's the big thing with us, Jonathan. We don't really want to treat our guys as contracts.
Mm-hmm.
We want to break everything down to them and let them know, hey, these are your rights under the contract. Hey, just because you get a $20 million signing bonus doesn't mean you have to see that 20 million this year. It's better to go ahead and, actually defer a portion of that, to the next year. So let's say if you split that into 2 years, now you're only getting taxed on 10 million for 2024, and then you get taxed on another 10 million for 2025. Or if you realize, hey, you know what, I think this is also a big part of players becoming bankrupt so quickly after their career because they probably don't need all that money. So that's kind of a mechanism really for them to be able to save money and create life after football, which my business partner and I are very big on, is creating life after football and deferred compensation and knowing your rights as far as not, if you have, I mean, you're still going to see that money. Keep in mind, if you got a $20 million signing bonus, you don't see $20 million. But if you can potentially live off of, let's say, $1 million and you can defer 19 million, or if let's say you want to live off 2 million, have, go, do some real estate ventures or whatever, do those things, but still realize that you can defer money later and put them into interest bearing accounts. Now, of course, as an NFLPA certified contract advisor, I don't touch our guys' money, but we really try to put them with great NFLPA financial advisors who can help them manage their money. So again, these are different opportunities that they have to be able to utilize to create that life after football.
Well, Corey, I guess in professional sports, like anything else, you have different layers of athletes that generate certain revenue. You're gonna have the LeBron James who can negotiate $1 billion, I think, lifetime deal with Nike. You're gonna have
Mhm.
other professional athletes who are gonna get, let's say, a nice $1 million contract. But you're gonna also have many athletes who just don't have the name recognition and just the star power to really generate any type of contracts. So what and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but what category do you kind of really work with directly? Do you work with multiple players to make up the fact that you may not be able to sign a LeBron James, but you can get a multitude of other different players? I mean, how's your whole process towards you as a sports agent trying to get the best business deals for yourself too when you're negotiating contracts?
Great question, Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, we usually do a larger class. So this class in particular is about 30 players we signed for the 2024 draft.
Mm-hmm.
But keep in mind that our agent to client ratios, because we have 10 agents in our firm, is still very low. We have about a 3 to 4 agent to client ratio. So that's one of the things that still allows us to maximize client engagement. So yes, as a smaller agency, we have to make sure we're getting larger numbers because as our veterans get older, I mean, there's always a chance of them getting released. So we have to begin prepare for those contingencies. And a part of that is to have larger draft classes in that regard. But keeping in mind, they're still getting that personal attention because it is a actual a lower client to agent ratio. Now, here's the thing. Another part of this is marketing wise. Remember, for football players, it's harder because they actually are wearing a helmet. They're not seen all the time. So they're not going to get the notoriety like a Pat Mahomes. They're not going to get the notoriety like, you know, a Justin Herbert or Joe Burrow.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, you're dealing with offensive linemen who are some of the, most humble, men that's on the team, but because they're not actually out there, they're not really getting all those endorsements. So one of the things we try to do is create opportunities for them off the field that may potentially create opportunities on the field. So like case in point, my business partner was just in Vegas this past weekend with our coach safety, Rodney Thomas II. So Rodney, of course, wasn't playing in the game, but keep in mind that, when you go down Radio Row, when you're talking about multi-million dollar companies that are in Vegas and all the like, having that opportunity to expose the clients to those opportunities, that's the things we try to do, so then they can see the player without the helmet. And and actually Will's done this quite successfully with a number of our guys. And then of course I create a number of opportunities off the field. I had a couple of our guys do the NFLPA events that are again giving back, philanthropic efforts. But again, it's not always where you can see the money immediately. It's also thinking that these opportunities can create other opportunities by networking and different things and the like.
Mm-hmm. What about when you hear professional athletes signing shoe deals?
Mhm.
They come up with their own type of sneaker logo or their sneaker name, but they're still under the agreement, let's say, of Nike, Adidas. How does those deals come together? I mean, how do you set up a particular sneaker or shoe deal with a professional athlete?
Great question. So I would do this in two parts.
Hmm.
So one of our advisors in our firm is Natasha Gransberry, and she actually is probably one of the smartest agents, smartest women I know ever. And she's actually patent bar certified. So what she does, she actually does our trademarking, branding, copyright. So if we had a player who actually needed to, wanted to do a shoe deal. One of the things we want to do is make sure that they protect their logo. That's the most important aspect. That intellectual property alone is probably going to be worth more than the shoe deal itself when you think about it, because that logo is our player's logo because we secured it through the trademark. Now, regular shoe deals, like say if you did something through Nike, and we've done a couple of different deals with some of our clients, EJ Speed, Jake Shump, where they sign Nike deals. And of course, we get commissions off of those things like that. But when you think about that, that's just a shoe deal. What we want to do is create that intellectual property. I'm gonna give you a quick story, Jonathan. So Tom Brady, he didn't start his TB12 until about his 15th year in the league. So imagine if he started TB12, which was his logo, his branding product, he might be looking at having probably, I would say, at least a $400 or $500 million company. Now he didn't know that that copyright, that trademarking was going to be so important, and he was so ultra focused on football that he just kind of waited and waited. But then when he started TB12, you see how it blew up because he had all the national team, but he had all the Super Bowl championships and different things. And I think that's one thing that, if for me as a black agent, what I would tell Pat Mahomes, he has, to me, I don't even know if he even has any kind of branding of that sort. I'm not his agent, but that's something as a three-time Super Bowl champ that he could be monetizing right now. Again, like I say, I don't know if he does or not. You just don't see it like TV12 and some of these others, but that's a huge part. When you own your intellectual property, that carries value beyond your football playing years.
Hmm. And then also in the National Football League, I guess the lifespan of a professional football player is no more than 3 to 4 years. Um, how come the years service? I have an idea. I just want to hear what you're gonna say. Is so low for the National Football League. Is it the fact that it's a physical, demanding game, or it's just a lot of competitions? What's the whole factor why the average NFL player career or playing time is somewhere between 3 to 4 years, if that's even an accurate assessment?
No, that is accurate, Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason is that literally every year a team is trying to replace a player and get a lower salary player. Most people think that like teams like the Chiefs, who just won the Super Bowl, they just have nothing but first rounders. Most people don't realize 50%, maybe even a little bit more of the Chiefs roster is made of undrafted free agents, lower round draft picks, because in order to pay the Pat Mahomes, in order to pay the Travis Kelce's of the world, in order to pay, a Isaiah Pacheco who may be coming up for a new deal where he actually thinks he's coming to the end of his third year. You have to have a certain amount of what we call minimum wage players make rosters. So a part of that is that they have to consistently bring in guys that can take other guys' jobs. So, like, let's do a case in point. So this year's minimum salary is 795,000. So let's say that particular player makes a team coming up this year, and then next year his salary goes to, I think, like I say, I think we were talking about 895. Don't quote me particular, but let's say it goes to 895. Well, then they can bring in an 825 player for next year, and then that 825 player now can take the 895 guy's job and save $70,000 on the cap. So it's yearly. It's actually just the fact that every year players are having to compete for their job. I mean, you start at 90, you cut to 53, and they want those guys who can come in, compete, and make a roster at a lower price so they can pay those higher end players. And, we're going to see that with the 49ers this year. They have a lot of high end players that are due contracts. Brandon Ayuk, also Jawan Jennings, who played very well. So what and the Niners are very, very cap tight because of the contracts they gave to Fred Warner, Deebo Samuel, also I think Eric Armstead got a pretty large contract. So they have some very high end players that are either going to have to probably restructure some of their deals so they can open up more cap room, or they might get released. So that's just a part of this business. When you have a salary cap, unlike Major League Baseball, you have to make certain financial decisions to maintain. So literally, the way the NFL is structured, unless you're just one of the true vets that isn't, integral part of the team, they almost feel like you're not going to be able to complete your 4-year contract as a drafted player, and potentially as an undrafted player. Most likely, you're not even going to be able to get 3 years in.
Well, Corey, it even goes beyond just skill, talent level, because if I recall, Dez Bryant, I believe he was a Pro Bowl player, and his career was over not due to any injury. He just got cut, and no other NFL team picked up Dez Bryant. And we're talking about a professional wide receiver who was really reaching his peak of his career. So do you think that was just a financial, again, business decision why a so-called superstar professional football player was released and is no longer playing in the NFL? Or is there some other factors, maybe about his personality, his character? Could you kind of elaborate just a little bit on Dez Bryant if you have any insight?
Yeah. I think that's a great point, Jonathan. So Dez Bryant was a combination of a couple of things. So one, as a receiver, and for him, you know, he got that initial larger contract. I think his contract, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was in the neighborhood of about 65 million. And I want to say his was about 40 million guaranteed.
Hmm.
But as you get the higher salary, it's a much higher expectation that's required. And then because teams actually, whenever they do like, let's say a $20 million signing bonus, what happens is they get to prorate that over the term of the contract. So they're not taking that one hit in that same given year. So when that cap number gets exceedingly high, which is usually on the back end of the contract, then you see players that are released because their cap number is like 35 million, and you have a salary cap. And at that time for Dez Bryant, his salary cap, the cap for the Cowboys is probably in the 180s, I would guess. So you're talking about one player taking up a sixth of that salary cap. And it's because of the inflated value of the back end of the contract. So that played a major part of him getting released in Dallas. Now, of course, whenever he ended up having that time in New Orleans briefly, he did have an Achilles tear or an ACL tear, which, for a receiver at that, kind of the prime, it kind of devalues that player and he becomes not as valuable. So it could have, I think that Dez Bryant, he probably could have played on vet minimum contracts, but in his mind, he probably felt he was much better than a vet minimum contract. So I can't knock him for not wanting to take a deal. I mean, especially if he spent his money right. And I think I think he was represented by Eugene Parker, which is a very, I think we actually lost
We
him.
did.
I think he died of cancer, but he had a great agent, and I'm sure he put Dez as with his information and his guidance. I'm pretty sure he put him in a really good position. So I think that because Dez was placed in a good position, he didn't have to take a vet minimum deal or take pay cuts to stay on the team. He just did what he needed to do. And of course, towards the Saints years, when he got hurt, that was just and injuries are part of the game. But I think it was just really the back end of his contract where the cap number got so high that the Cowboys, were forced to either have him take a pay cut, and they didn't want to restructure and create, even more of a higher cap number the next year.
Well, Corey, I mean, Overtime Sports Management LLC, you deal mostly with national football players, but you do have a component that deals with national basketball players as well. Um, is there a tremendous imbalance between the two sports towards contracts and players? Because today in the National Basketball Association, a high school player has to, I believe, sit out 1 year of he has to sit out 1 year. He can go to college as a freshman, but I guess they're no longer allowed to go straight from high school to the NBA like Kobe Bryant and Kevin Garnett. So they have to sit out or play college 1 year. Then they automatically I guess, are eligible to go to the National Basketball Association, where college football seems to still fall under the tradition that most college players play at least two, more likely 3 seasons, and then they may decide to go as the underclassmen draft to the NFL. So, is there more opportunities? What I'm really asking you is there more opportunities in the National Basketball Association for high school players than it consists of in the National Football League?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm.
And great question on that one, Jonathan. So here's the thing. With the NBA, it is they have to have at least 1 year of college basketball. But here's the workaround that a lot of these young men are doing. Instead of doing the 1 year of college basketball, they can go and play internationally, or they can go play in the G League. And so that's what happened with the twins. I can't remember their names, because one was drafted to the Pistons and one was drafted to the Rockets. They actually didn't play college basketball, so they actually went the 1 year, play professional, I guess what you call sub-professional, in the fact that they were getting paid. And I believe also with one of um, the dad in LA, I keep forgetting his name. I know one of his sons did that route as well, where he went to play internationally. So that's the rule for the NBA. Now, for NFL, under the collective bargaining agreement, at least 3 seasons must pass between a player having high school graduation and going to the NFL. So that is under the CBA, to where an NFL player has to wait a minimum of 3 seasons from their high school graduation. So yes, there are way more opportunities, Jonathan, for a player to actually get money in basketball much sooner. And now here's the thing that is somewhat changing that. Now you have the name, image, and likeness, or NIL, which is creating an opportunity for the football players to now be able to be paid while they're in school. And I'm sure you're about to get to that next question. So
Mm-hmm.
I hope I hit it to the point. But that is where now, if you are a top tier player, let's say at Alabama, you're a top tier player at a Clemson, at a UT, now they can be on, I guess you can call it salary for, maybe upwards of $300,000-400,000 a year. In fact, it was kind of funny. They had Coach Loxley with Maryland. I'm not sure if you saw this a couple of days ago. He's like a third string running back. Came to his office and said, "Hey, Coach, can you give me $100,000? Or I'm gonna jump into the portal." I was like, and Coach Loxley looked at them crazy, like, "Do you realize you're a third string running back and you're asking me for $100,000?"
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he probably wanted to tell him you can kick rocks, but again, he made a point that NIL is definitely changing the atmosphere and the trajectory of football, to where now you think about it. Think about Nick Saban. Think about Jim Harbaugh. The reason why they got out this business is they were doing what I would say the good old boy system. They were getting these guys to say, "Oh, just coming to Alabama. We'll take care of you on the back end, small amounts of money, But now, I mean, you literally have universities that are paying to bring players into a particular school. So that's a part of the program that you just that happens, is that now NIL is definitely changing that trajectory for college football athletics for the better.
Well, everybody focuses so much on the professional players towards their contracts and their opportunities. But in the professional sports arena, like the NFL, Major League Baseball, the National Basketball Association, is there a lot of other business and job opportunities that consist of that people may not just be aware of? And what's the competitive ratio? Like, if you are a college player, and chances are you're not going to last long in professional sports, but there's other opportunities that you could get towards a career in professional sports like the NFL. What do that NFL player has to do to prepare himself to make the transition? Like, he wants to become a general manager, he wants to become a vice president of operations. What do they really need to do to get to the next transitionary stage?
Outstanding question, Jonathan.
Mhm.
So, a lot of people don't realize the NFL, NFLPA have programs in place for entrepreneurship through Stanford University. There's MBA programs through Keller School of Business at University of Indiana, and I think they're a top five accredited business school. There's broadcasting courses. There's real estate courses. In fact, there was one player noted who got his PhD from Baltimore. I can't think of the young man's name. He was an offensive lineman. He actually, so as a part of being a part of being the NFL, if a player is in an active status going into the next season and they have what's called a credited season, which means they have a certain amount of games that they've met to play, then they're eligible for an array of NFL programs, going back to school to finish out their bachelor's, going back to school to get a master's, PhD. Lawrence Duvernay toured some guy from the Chiefs. He's a Canadian guy. He actually got his MD, and he actually went to work during COVID, and he never came back. So those are the things that we try to do as an agency, is encourage our guys, hey, there's life after football, and there's opportunities that can be created by you just, you're paying your NFLPA dues. Why not take advantage of them? I mean, these are the educational programs that are free to them because they pay their NFLPA dues. So we're very big, and we push all of our guys. In fact, one of our success stories, Jordan Franks, he actually is in the master's program at Indiana Keller School of Business. Super proud of him. And we have a number of our guys. We have one of our players who's doing a project with Deontay Gray. He's one of our former players who actually injured himself during training camp with the Texans, and that was his third ACL tear. He actually decided to go to film school. So we're actually working on a project with one of our New England New England Patriots defensive lineman, Jeremiah Forms, to kind of tell his story on how his transition from, being a COVID kid during the draft, having to go play arena football, then go to the USFL, and now he's an active player on the New England Patriots. We're actually working on a story for him and trying to feature that as one of the success stories of the NFL, that you just never give up. So we're really big proponents, Jonathan, on making sure our guys work on that life after football.
Corey, I can't think of a better way. I mean, unfortunately, we're out of time, or we're running out of time on this segment. But your company, Overtime Sports Management LLC, seems to really have a lot of different components beyond just the norm for the players that you represent. And it comes across that you're very sincere and you're very concerned about the college transition of college players becoming professional players, because the perception is in NFL sports and major league sports, it's a cutthroat business. We only care about you because of what you have to offer. If you don't have that value, we don't really want anything to do with you. But I don't seem to pick that up from you, and I don't know you or in your company that you represent. And that's a good sign that you're really concerned with players and you're willing to advise them towards opportunities beyond just professional sports. obviously you have to realize you are in business to make money, but there's nothing wrong when you can help a person and have a person being prepared beyond life to have something that's, as the old saying, to fall back on just in case professional sports does not work out or something happens and you're no longer to play. So, as I ask my guests every single week towards the end of the show, if there's anything else that you would like for people to know about yourself, about your company, what you're willing or what you're working towards, feel free to do so.
Well, first off, Jonathan, thank you so much for having me on the show.
Mhm.
It's an honor to be on Face to Face. Big fan of yours. You can follow us on OSMG, OSMG at IG on at OSMG LLC, and the same for our TikTok. We kind of have a growing TikTok base at OSMG LLC, but the NFL, a lot of people don't realize NFL stands for not for long as well. So that's the reason why we are so big proponents on creating life after football, my business partner and I. So, again, we really pour into our guys and we're so proud of them. In fact, for us, a win for them is getting vested because that means they actually have created a pension for themselves. So we celebrate that more than we celebrate the touchdowns and the interceptions. So again, thank you, Jonathan, for having me on the show. It's been truly an honor.
You're welcome, Corey. Keep up the good work. You're doing a great job. I appreciate those comments and those gratitudes that you was willing to give me throughout the show. And it was a very pleasure to have you as a guest on Face to Face this morning. And I'll look forward to possibly working with your company towards future guests in the near future. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you, Jonathan.
All right. Take care. Okay, this is
All right.
Jonathan Small. I had just enjoyed hosting this edition of Face to Face with the special guest. He is the co-founder, president, CEO of Overtime Sports Management LLC, located in Houston, Texas. And I think he's doing an excellent job at working with players towards the transition from college to professional and beyond. As I say every single week, I try to rotate the different show formats. So I'm working hard right now to book a guest for All About You, the biographical format style talk show. But if things don't work out or a great topic or guest comes along for another face-to-face public affairs show, I won't hesitate to book that guest as well. But until I see you again, if it's God's willings, have a very peaceful day and keep the faith. Thank you.